let's have a quick look at how we add elements to our array once it's already created. So here we have our fruit array. We've created this with the special array construct here, which creates our array and initializes it with these 3 values. So what if we want to add a new value to the array? Well, we'll just do that very simply through assignment. So we suppose we want to change the first element, which is going to be at index 0, and we assign it the value of plum, and that should change apple to plum. So it's going to overwrite that value there. So let's just have a quick look and see how that looks. Plum, orange, pear. So we can see our array has been changed, and equally we could have put that to the second element there instead. So we could put it in there, or rather the third element at index 2, and so on. What if we want to put an element at the end? Suppose we want to add a peach element at the end of our array. Let's just do this. So we use these square brackets with nothing in it, and that tells us to add 1, 2. In this case it'll be index 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to have a new index 3 here now, which is going to be peach, hopefully. So let's just clear this window and run this again, F5, and now we have 4 elements in an array. We've got apple, orange, pear and peach. So that's one of the advantages of working with indexed arrays is that the indices are all integers, they're numbers, so you can do a lot of things with them. So for instance, we could create a for loop, and we could loop through our array, and that will be quite simple. We just start our for loop at I, and we finish it at count, this function here, which will give us the count, the length of the array. Let's just try that. See what that gives us, and that gives us 3, because our array has 3 elements. So we could create a for loop. For I is assigned the value of 0, semicolon, I is less than count fruit, I plus plus I increment, and see where we could loop through each element of our array that way. But we have even nicer ways of doing it for more general arrays. We have this for each construct. So for each fruit, as, we use the as keyword, and we give it a name that's another variable here, f. So basically what we're doing in this loop here is saying for each element in this array, we're going to loop through the array and look at each element, and as we do so, during each iteration of the loop, we assign the value of each element to this variable f, and we can just look at f there. So let's just see what that does, and you can see that prints our array there with spaces around each element, apple, orange, pear. So that's a very simple and effective construct for iterating over our array, whether it's indexed or associative. And there's a lot of other nice utility functions in PHP, and for instance, we can shuffle. We can use the shuffle function. Let's just try that. And see what that gives us, and you might have an inkling of what this is about to do. And you can see last time that when we, let's clear the output, when we iterated through our array here, it went apple, orange, pear. Now we're going to shuffle that array and see what happens. Oh, made a mistake there. So that's one way we can iterate an array. One of the nice things about indexed arrays is that we just create the array here. We put in the values, tell PHP what we want the values of this array to be, and it supplies the indices for us automatically. So it just adds 0, 1, 2 just based on the order that we've named them. So it's done a lot of the work for us, and it has a lot of utility functions like that to allow us to easily create arrays, because we said earlier that an array doesn't have to be strings, it can be numbers. So let's say we want some numbers, and that our array would be something like, say, suppose we wanted some counting numbers from 1 to whatever. We can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, and that will give us an array of numbers. So we can see there, and the indexed array in this case is just one less than the number that's in the array, than the value of the array. It gets a bit confusing obviously when we have, for illustrative purposes, when we have arrays with both indices and values that are numbers. But what we have in PHP are some nice functions that allow us to create shortcuts to create arrays. So here's a shortcut to create this array here, and it's called the range function, and it just takes a starting value and an ending value and it creates that range. So let's just check that, and so you have the exact same array here, but suppose we want this to go up to 12 and start at 4. Let's see what that gives us. And you can see here now that the values of our array are 4 all the way down to 12. And indeed we can do them the opposite way around. So suppose we want 10 down to 1, can reverse order array, and that will give us that. And you can also do this with characters as well. So we could do an A to Z array, and that will give us this array of strings here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. up to 25Z. But that's of course the 26th element. And let's look at another function that we might use here, which is shuffle. So suppose let's call this letters. We can print letters there, and let's just take A to F instead, just make this array a bit smaller. Let's clear this down here, and let's introduce a new function called shuffle and pass in the letters array. And I think you can guess what shuffle is going to do, and it's jumble up the order C, B, E, F, A, D, and we could use that to randomize our letters. Let's just, of course there is another way we could do that, because indices are numbers, because they're numbers, we could use the rand function instead. To suppose we want to select a random letter, we could shuffle letters, and then we could just go echo letters 0, and that gives a random number, a random letter from our array. Let's have a look at that. So that's giving us D. It's going, oh whoops, hang on, it's giving us F. Let's just echo a line break here to make our output a bit more readable. Now, so it's echoing A. We just echoed a break there to the console here. So this is similar to your BR in HTML, just it's a special escape character to add a line break. So we can see that that letter was A that time. Let's try it again. With F that time, F, F, D, F, 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 B, F, E, B, etc. So that gives us a random letter. But another way we could do this as well without using shuffle. So instead of using shuffle, we could use the random function here instead. And we could create a random function between 0 and A, B, C, D, E, F, which will be the sixth element in the array, which should be at index 5. So that should give us a number between 0 and 5. And let's just see what that does. Let's just clear this now. Oops. Create a bit more space for ourselves here now, so we can see the output window a bit better. And let's go and output this. E, E, D, A, B, E, A, B, A, B, D, E, E, B, etc. There's F as well. So I did manage to get to F. I didn't commit an off by one error here, which commonly happens where you could put 6 instead of 5 in there, 4 instead of 5 or whatever. So that's, and that the reason we can do this is because we can access the values A to F of our letters array by an integer key or index, and that's one of the real powers of indexed arrays. We can do a lot of interesting things like that with them, and that's the basics of indexed arrays in PHP.